opens, hopefully the air circulates. It's been over 10 years since the US and Britain went to war in Iraq, weapons of mass destruction that were never found. And history shows that people on our side that stood and opposed the war in the marches that nearly stopped the war have been proved right. If you look at almost all of the reasons that the West gave for going to war, nearly all of them have been proved completely wrong. Establishing women's rights in Afghanistan, exporting democracy, and many others, none of those have been realised. However, here we are in 2013, and it seems that the prospect of war grows and grows. It seems that the West is in effect addicted to war, and that's why it's really important that we do what we do and come out year after year and always take a principled stand against our government getting involved in other countries' business. Tonight is our AGM, but before that we're going to have the public meeting. Everybody is welcome to stay for the AGM afterwards. It's not going to be a really long affair. But first of all, really pleased to say that we've got Jeremy Corbyn here, and he's going to speak on from Syria to Mali, stop the spread of war. Jeremy needs no introduction, but we'll give him one. He's a long-standing MP for Islington North. He's currently the chair of the Stop the War Coalition. He's known as being a rare breed of principled politicians, and I think this is best represented by the fact that he's defied the party with 25% of the time, which is good. And I always say this when I 25%. Well, yeah, he needs to improve. And he's also in 2001 he won the national competition for having the best beard. And some people feel that now Tony Benn started having a beard, he's been influenced by Jeremy. So the man's influence goes a long way. He's going to speak for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we're going to have a discussion. Please welcome Jeremy Corbyn.
Thanks very much. I can see some better beards around this room, actually, so that should be worrying. But Tony Benn's beard is coming on very nicely. I think he should have had one years ago, so there we go. Yes, the votes against the government actually amounted to 310 last couple of times. I want to thank you for inviting me along today. Last time I came for Norwich Stop and War, it was January. It was not cold. Now it's the hottest day of the year, I think. And I think the work you've done in Norwich Stop and War is absolutely brilliant. And it's the importance of keeping stop and war groups strong, keeping them vibrant, keeping them alive, and keeping that presence of challenging the whole militarism in our society that is so important. I've concluded this part as well because we are moving into an increasingly military age at a time when we can less and less afford it as a country. And our young people are more and more being fed the narrative that all that matters is having strong armed forces, and we therefore have armed forces day, and all these kinds of things, which sort of closes off the options of discussing any other role in the world, any other peaceful role in the world. So there's 3 or 4 specific issues I want to mention. The first one, some of you may have read the story of the Guardian a couple of days ago, but yesterday the House of Commons Committee on Arms Export Controls published its report, and the chair of that committee is a Conservative, Sir John Stanley, who is a long-standing, very interested and interesting Conservative MP. He probably wouldn't share the political views of any of us in this room, but he's made some very interesting observations about arms exports in his report. And in a speech he gave during the debate on arming Syria or not last week, he made the point that can you not hear me?
It's very noisy.
Sorry,
is it me the noisy or the fans?
I'm 80 anyway, but the noise of the fans.
And I don't mind.
Well, shall we give the fans a rest for my voice to speak up and then put the fans on again? Would that do?
I might be just me.
I don't mind sweating, but here
on
we've all got to make sacrifices. already by being here. Anyway, back to Sir John Stanley. He made a very interesting speech last week in this debate about Syria, in which he pointed out that the supplying of arms in Libya 2 years ago has now ended up with highly sophisticated surface-to-air missiles, night vision equipment, radar, a whole lot of things, as well as all kinds of weaponry, are now spread out all over North Africa, in Mali, in Senegal, in Central African Republic, and that these arms are being easily bought or sold at various arms markets and arms bazaars, and many of them also ended up in Somalia. And he goes on to make the point that the large amounts of money that's being spent on arms abroad are going mainly to countries that have very poor human rights records. So there's two particular countries that they draw attention to in this report. The first is Saudi Arabia, which is already the biggest recipient of British arms exports through the Al-Yamani arms contract, which goes back a very long way. When BAE Systems were reported to the Serious Fraud Office, the Serious Fraud Office mounted an investigation for 3 years into it, and were on the point of taking legal action when Tony Blair intervened and stopped them going any further with it. This is going back some years, and they have highly sophisticated weaponry. So the Serious Fraud Office investigation was not into human rights in Saudi Arabia, but was into the corruption surrounding the contracts under which they bought all this weaponry. The points that Stanley and others have made is that Saudi Arabia's biggest import of British equipment over the past couple of years has all been anti-personnel equipment. It's been personnel carriers, it's been riot control equipment, it's been CS gas, it's been riot shields, it's been water cannons, it's been assault rifles, it's all that kind of thing, all designed to suppress internal dissent, which shows the degree of paranoia that the Saudi regime has about its own population. And of course this equipment was also used, and surveillance equipment, for the occupation of Bahrain by Saudi Arabia in order to prop up the king against the popular protests. This is going back, the first time I met Bahrain human rights activists was in Copenhagen at a UN conference in 1986. They've been at it a very long time, and the trial of the medics in Bahrain still goes on. So that's the point about arms exports. And I think we have to be prepared to continue to raise that. And Amnesty International also produced a very interesting report, briefing that came out last month, on it's called The History of Neglect, UK Export Finance and Human Rights, and points out two things. One is the huge amount of third world, as they call it, debt that is owed to Britain through the United Kingdom arms export system, very large amounts of money. We're talking of several £100 million here that's owed, but also the way in which the protocols on human rights, end-use certificates and all the other things are frequently breached, and that is going on at the present time. Now, last week we had a debate about arms to Syria or not in the British Parliament. Take it back a little bit. The EU proposed an arms embargo on all sales of arms to Syria by all 27 member states. This goes back more than a year, well over a year from when the Syrian conflict first exploded. And that's mandatory on all member states. Britain and France were always very sceptical about it, but did go along with it at that stage, but have pushed the envelope as far as they can by providing what they call non-lethal equipment, which includes surveillance equipment, it includes tracking equipment, it includes radar, a whole lot of things except weaponry. So you've got to ask yourself, well, there comes a point when there's actually a small difference between the logistical support you're giving and the weaponry you're not providing. It's a small difference. And the Syrian opposition, or various elements of it, already have vast amounts of money provided by Qatar and Saudi Arabia, as well as payment to some of the fighters by Qatar and Saudi Arabia. The British government then announced that it was going to veto the